I asked the AI ChatGPT to make me a competitive Pokemon team, and believe it or not, it actually started to give me one. Except it was a team for Sword and Shield, not Scarlet and Violet. This was probably because of it only being trained on data up to 2021, so it didn't know anything about the new generations. So after giving it a list of the returning Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet and forcing it to replace any incorrect Pokemon, it eventually gave me 6 Pokemon, all of which are actually available in Scarlet and Violet. Not only that, but it also gave suggested movesets for each of them too. The 6 Pokemon were Dragapult, Slowbro, Scizor, Gyarados, Salamence, and Lucario. But just the Pokemon and their movesets aren't enough though, so I asked what health item each Pokemon would also have, and after playing around to ensure no illegal items and no duplicates were present, we were one step closer to our champion team. Next up was the nature and EV spreads for the Pokemon. These are extra points which allow you to min-max specific stats for your Pokemon, and amazingly enough, ChatGPT delivered specifying the natures and even including which stats get boosted by which nature, and the spreads. So can I just take a moment to say that this is actually mind-blowing. Like, I didn't know what to expect when I first gave it the initial prompt, but I was pleasantly surprised. However, there was an issue. The eagle-eyed viewers would notice that while it was generating the Pokemon and their movesets, although I said all of the Pokemon were available in Scarlet and Violet, not all of the assigned moves were legal. In Generation 9, Slowbro no longer has the ability to learn the move Scald, meaning that the Slowbro on this team would not be legal. So I asked for a different Pokemon to take Slowbro's place, and the lucky Pokemon for today was Hydreigon. I then asked for what abilities each Pokemon should have, and now the last thing that had to be done was something very specific for Generation 9, and that was the Terra types. Now, because this AI won't know what a Terra type is or have any data on recommended Terra types for these Pokemon, I tried my best to describe the mechanics of terrestrialization and then asked what type the AI would suggest based off of that description. But it ended up just giving me one of the base types for each Pokemon, so maybe it didn't really understand the point about being able to change your weaknesses and resists, but that's fine. But we do now have enough information to make our team. So, the question is, how well will this team perform? Well, let's head into battles and let's test it out then. Now, as much as I like this team in our first match here, I can't help but notice that we have 3 dragons and the opponent does have a Titan, which has super effective ice moves against all of those dragons. But despite that, I'll still bring them along, leading with Salamence and Gyarados, the physical attackers, and in the back we'll have Dragapult and Hydreigon for the special attackers. Thankfully though, they lead with Salazzle and Rotom Wash, so no threats to a dragon Pokemon at the moment. However, that Rotom does mean I am pretty much forced to switch my Gyarados out to avoid eating a 4 times effective electric move. But since I'm expecting Rotom to attack the Gyarados slot, and there's not much threat going against my Salamence, I'll let it start to set up with a Dragon Dance to increase its attack and its speed, especially since there's no point really in trying to use Earthquake since Rotom has Levitate and I'd be hitting my own Dragapult that's about to come in. He does indeed terrestrialize his Rotom into an electric type though, so he probably is going to try and 1-hit KO my Gyarados, or what would have been the Gyarados at least. Meanwhile, his Salazzle is going to use Poison Gas, which actually, shout out to ChatGPT, recommending the Lumberry on Salamence means that the poison isn't going to last actually. So Salamence stays healthy as it gets off a Dragon Dance. Hopefully that means it can outspeed the Salazzle next turn, but it turns out that the Rotom is going to use Hyper Voice? Pretty strange option, not gonna lie, but that makes the Dragapult switch in all the better since it won't take any damage. But the Rotom does have Throat Spray, which will increase its special attack. Honestly, I would have expected it to have something like Choice Specs instead and just maybe go for an immediate Thunderbolt or something, or a Discharge at least, but hey, I'm fine with that. But for our turn now, we have a chance to go in the offensive. I have to be careful about what move Dragapult uses since it will be locked into it because of Choice Specs. So I choose Fire Blast since I'm expecting Titan to come out at some point, and I'll have Salamence double into the Rotom as well with a Dragon Claw too. Now, Salamence moves first because of that speed boost from Dragon Dance, which does kind of make this a bit suboptimal. The reason being is that immediately afterwards Dragapult gets the KO, but had that been the other way around, with Salamence going second, it could have gotten the KO to trigger Moxie and raise its attack by another stage. Salazzle does get off a Sludge Bomb though onto Salamence, which gets it dangerously low. So low in fact, had it not been for that Lumberry, Salamence would have taken its second tick of poison damage this turn, and that would have KO'd it actually. So again, shout out to ChatGPT for making sure to give Salamence that Lumberry. Their next Pokemon though is Orthworm, so it's a good thing I'm locked into Fire Blast my Dragapult, which should be able to do decent damage to that Orthworm. Meanwhile, I can use Roost on Salamence to recover some of that HP it lost from the Sludge Bomb. Unfortunately though, Dragapult does miss the Fire Blast on the Orthworm, but thankfully though, Salazzle attacks the Dragapult instead of Salamence, probably because it doesn't want me to get off this Fire Blast. And then Orthworm does set up with Iron Defense. Now, it's not the end of the world if Dragapult doesn't take out the Orthworm just yet, because I do still have Hydreigon with Flamethrower in the back, but I would like to take out the Orthworm sooner rather than later. So since I expect Dragapult to KO the Orthworm if it can land the Fire Blast, and Salazzle doesn't seem like an issue for Salamence, I let it get off yet another Dragon Dance to boost his attack even more so that once Orthworm is out, I can go for a potential double KO with Earthquake. And the Fire Blast does land, which takes out the Orthworm in one single hit. Dazzle though does get the return KO onto Dragapult, but that's actually perfectly fine with me because now I can bring Gyarados back in. And because both Gyarados and Salamence are part flying, I can double Earthquake here without any worries. So that's 2 Earthquakes, one of them boosted by Life Orb from the Gyarados, the other one boosted by +2 attack from the Salamence. So Titan does come out as their final Pokemon, so this is a little bit scary for Salamence, who is going to be quad weak to an Ice type move, but with how much damage it can do, I think it should be fine. It can at least get off some decent damage before it gets KO'd. Salamence does go first and gets the Titan down to just below half health, while Dazzle goes down to its Focus Sash. And in its final moments it uses Poison Gas, but right after that Gyarados finishes the job and also takes the Titan down to its last remaining quarter of health. The Ice Spinner comes out from Subtitan and it does KO Salamence, but considering the Subtitan has a Life Orb and Hydreigon has a Choice Scarf with Flamethrower that's about to come in, I'm pretty sure this Subtitan is as good as finished. Because there is no way it is going to be able to survive doing damage to take out both the Hydreigon and then Gyarados, who even though is flying is also pot water, so won't take super effective damage from ice moves. So naturally with the Choice Scarf, Hydreigon does outspeed and goes first with the Flamethrower to take out the Titan and win the game. Now, that team showed off 4 of the Pokemon in the team, but Scizor and Lucario were left out. So in this match, we're going to lead with those 2 to show what they can do with Salamence and Dragapult in the back. And hopefully, this will shine some light on the other 2. I'm mostly excited to show off the Scizor because of the fact that it has Swords Dance. Unlike the Gyarados and Salamence who have Dragon Dance, Swords Dance on Scizor is interesting because it gets +2 attack, but no speed increases. But that's fine because it does have access to the priority move Bullet Punch, which means it doesn't really need that speed boost. Combine that with the fact that Bullet Punch gets bonuses from both Stab and Technician ability, it does a lot of damage. But let's see how it turns out though in the match. They're going to lead with Palafin and Klefki. Now, I'm fully expecting this Palafin to switch out, whether it be a hard switch or with Flip Turn. Meanwhile, that Klefki doesn't look too dangerous to us. So, I'll have Lucario do some damage with Close Combat, and as for Scizor, since it doesn't have any super effective moves, and it doesn't have a move as hard hitting as Close Combat, instead I'll have it use Swords Dance. Palafin does choose to Protect actually, so maybe they were scared about switching something else in and having it take too much damage, but either way, that's fine by me, and Klefki also uses Thunder Wave, but misses the Lucario. So this is literally the best possible outcome for us on turn 1, as we get some decent chip damage onto Klefki from the Close Combat and also get a nice setup with Swords Dance on our Scizor. Now, we saw that Klefki moves before both of our Pokemon, so to prevent it from doing anything else, we can just double Bullet Punch into it. And again, the Palafin isn't really a concern right now. So the Palafin does finally switch out to bring in a Tyranitar, but thankfully, we won't take any damage from the sand because both of our Pokemon are Steel. Meanwhile, Lucario does a small little chunk of damage to the Klefki, but the Scizor comes in and hits like a truck in comparison. That's the effect of +2 from Swords Dance plus Stab plus then Technician, so our Scizor is sitting in a very nice position right now. It also has the super effective moves Bullet Punch for the Tyranitar as well next turn. But now the transformed Palafin does come out to replace the Klefki, which is kind of scary. So since Tyranitar is out now, Lucario can try and get off a Close Combat to take it out. And because I'm thinking that this guy sees a +2 Scizor, he's going to want to prioritize taking it out. So instead, I'll have Scizor use Protect here. Lucario does move first and gets off a huge one-hit KO against the Tyranitar with Close Combat. However, this does mean Lucario is going to be pretty weak now defensively since it's having its defenses lowered yet again. But thankfully though, as I predicted, Palafin tries to attack the Scizor, not the Lucario. His final Pokemon is Lycanroc, which almost definitely outspeeds us, especially in the sand. Now, this might be the Focus Sash Endeavor strategy on the Lycanroc, which could go for some cheesy kills, so I switched Lucario in for Dragapult for 2 reasons. 1, for the Ghost typing, and 2, to erase the defense drops on Lucario. Meanwhile, Scizor goes for the Bullet Punch onto Lycanroc. Thankfully, I did choose to attack the Lycanroc with Scizor because Palafin is the one that's going to be protecting this turn, and once that Bullet Punch lands, indeed it does show that Lycanroc was holding onto Focus Sash. Thankfully though, there's no Endeavor cheeses coming out of it, but it does instead go for a Howl to increase their attack. Now, for what should be the final turn, I can have Dragapult drop a Draco Meteor onto the Palafin to do some decent damage to it, since we don't really have anything else to do a lot of damage. Meanwhile, Scizor can use Bullet Punch yet again on the Lycanroc. So he's going to Terrestrialize though, but unfortunately for him, it looks like he's going to use his Terrestrialization on his Palafin. But not just that, it's going to be a Terrestrialization into a Dragon type, which our Dragapult is already Draco Meteoring, with Choice Specs as well. Lycanroc ends up protecting, but that's okay because we can just Bullet Punch him again next turn. And the crazy thing is, once this Dragapult lands this Draco Meteor, which one-hit KOs the Palafin, It turns out, technically speaking, our opponent never got a single damaging move off against our entire team. The only damage was from the Sandstorm on the Dragapult. In theory, we could have maybe left in our Lucario and had taken absolutely no damage, but that's assuming that Lucario could one-hit KO the Palafin in a Dragon Terror, which I don't think it could. I think we had to have Dragapult here to Draco Meteor, but that's fine though. Either way, it's a win for us. So as you can see, the team can have its moments where it does really well, but of course that doesn't mean the team is perfect. Like I said, since ChatGPT only had data up to September of 2021, it couldn't fully know what the metagame would be like in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I mean, we have 3 dragons on our team and 2 steel types as well. A single Flutter Mane with Dazzling Gleam and Mystical Fire would absolutely wreak havoc on this team. But I would love to see what would happen once this AI model is updated to include more information about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Maybe when that does happen, I'll revisit this again to see what type of team it comes up with. But hopefully you found this team interesting or fun, and if you did, a like and a sub would be greatly appreciated, and also any comments. Like I said, if I do ever try and do an updated version of this team, subscribing will definitely keep you notified of when that does happen. But until then though, feel free to check out any of my other videos. But until next time, bye bye.